name's Corey, and I sew and do things sometimes. I thought it would be fun to make a YouTube channel to document some of my sewing progress, see how I'm coming along, be able to reminisce in the future. Yeah, and I was really inspired by Rachel Maksy's pumpkin Halloween costume last year that was like inspired by the 20's. And I have never identified with an aesthetic more, and I wanted to recreate that but in my own way, with some inspiration from the same inspiration that she used. I decided to get my fabric before designing the outfit, that way I could design around what I knew I could find. I wouldn't have to search too far for anything. So I just picked up a dress from the thrift store, just a little orange dress so I wouldn't have to sew everything. And then I got these two fabrics from Fabricland. For some reason I seem to be drawn to the hard to work with flimsy see-through fabrics, but I'll make it work. I drew a few different versions of this, and then settled on this one in the end. I thought it was really cute. I like a hood. And I made the skirt into two separate pieces so that I could use them separately for different outfits if I want. And here's the start of that whole process now.
So I just drew a little pattern of the pumpkins I wanted on this piece of paper and cut it out so I could use it for tracing. I wanted 8 double-sided pumpkins on the skirt, and I wanted to make them more stable, so instead of using interfacing or something like that, I cut out 16 pumpkins so I could make them too thick. Since my pattern was asymmetrical, I made sure to flip the pattern to the back half of the pumpkins. To make the eyes, I just cut out a bunch of small squares and cut them in half to make the little triangle eyes. For the mouth, I cut out a slightly curved rectangle and then cut small triangles along each side to create a spooky, toothy smile. Love my son. I made smiles for all his friends too, don't worry. Then I just figured out how long I wanted the pumpkin skirt to be and cut out 8 pieces of ribbon that length. Apparently this is the only shot I have of that happening, thanks to my boyfriend. Lovely. Now it's time to attach the pumpkins together, which I did by hand sewing because I like to suffer apparently. I'm just placing the ribbon inside to see where I want to sew it in, and I'm just going to start my first stitch right beside where that ribbon would go. Stay in frame. There you go. Placing the ribbon back into place, I'll just continue my stitching through the ribbon to secure it. I probably could have just glued the pumpkins together and saved me some trouble, but oh well, I think the stitches look nice. Continue these stitches all the way around the pumpkin and made some stitches down the pumpkin to make the little vertical bulbous sections. I also experimented with circling the stitches around the pumpkin, but I decided I like the straight stitches better. Now to sew on the eyes, I start by making just a few stitches into one side's eye. I take the other eye and I just put it on those stitches that I made on the back and sew through both of them to secure it. I also use that same method to sew on the mouths. To make the waistband for the skirt, I'm just making a bias tape, but I'm cutting it on the straight grain. Is it even bias tape if it's not cut on the bias? Oh well, then I'm folding each side of the non-bias bias tape into the center and ironing it down. Then I fold it in half again and iron it again to make a little slot for the ribbons to sit in. Here's my center front ribbon, my side ribbons, and then my last ribbon offset to one side and with my measurements should sit at my center back. I just fold over and stitch each end of the bias tape closed, then sew along the entire tape to secure all the ribbons within it. Ignore the sweatpants, thank you, but this is how it's looking so far. Now I'm just going to attach some Velcro to the waistband so I can get it on and off easily. Just sewing a rectangle around all the edges of the Velcro and 2 diagonal lines through it to secure it. However, even though I swear I checked like 3 times, I still somehow managed to sew the Velcro onto the same side. So instead of it laying flat and nice, it attached like this. I then spent an eternity unpicking one side and restitching it the proper way. The webbed skirt was much easier to make as it essentially was just a long piece of fabric draped around me with the waistband. So I just took my waist and hip measurements and used my pattern weights to mark those on the fabric, then just extended the end even wider so that it would flare out a bit, and then cut out the skirt shape. Since I was attaching the top of this into a waistband, I decided to fold over the fabric twice and sew it down. This way, when machine sewing this into the bias tape, the thread would have a little more to grab onto. I don't know if this was totally necessary, but it took a long time, so I'm saying of this. Every few hand stitches, I would make a knot to secure it. Then I just pinned the fabric inside the bias tape and sewed it down. I also attached Velcro to this waistband just like the last one. Now to make the cape, I first cut out a simple square hood from my fabric. Then I folded it in half and painstakingly hand sewed the top together with some running stitches with a few knots every few stitches to secure it. So here's what it looked like after. You can kind of see how it looks like a hood now. I decided I needed some definition to the front of the hood to show it off better, so I sewed a small bias tape around it to define it. And here's what it looked like at this point. To figure out how much fabric I'd need to make the cape, I just kind of draped it around me, made sure I had some room to move my arms, and then grabbed the fabric at the center back to get half the size and cut out double that width to get the full amount. It's not very scientific. See, I can move my arms. Needed some definition to the front of the cape as well, so attached some bias tape to each side. Now I needed to attach the hood and cape together, so I had to gather the cape to fit the length of the hood. I made some hand stitches along the top of the cape and pulled the fabric to gather it. Now I needed a way to attach these flimsy pieces of fabric together, so I made this weird Z-shaped bias tape. I've never seen anything like this before, I just made it up, but maybe it's something that already exists. Essentially, I just folded it into thirds to make two cavities for fabric to go into, and tucked the raw edges in as well. Kind of see the Z shape there with the two cavities for the hood and cape to go into. And then pinned the cape into one of these cavities and sewed it down. Then I pinned the hood into the other cavity and sewed everything down together. I needed a string on each end of the cape to tie it together, but the edges of the hood were now so thick, so I very slowly, very painfully hand-stitched them in. I do not recommend. Don't come for me and my methods. So I wanted to add a jack-o'-lantern face to my dress and make a matching jack-o'-lantern mask. So I started cutting out these triangles for the eyes and noses, folding in the raw edges, and sewing them down. My big idea for the mouth was to cut out 2 layers of this spiky mouth I made, and then I could turn it inside out to hide all the raw edges. course I sewed the whole thing closed and had to unpick a side. I trimmed and cut notches into the seam allowance, but it was no use. My mouth was just too narrow to pull all that fabric through. I then crafted this horrible hook thing out of a hanger and tortured this poor fabric until it eventually gave in and turned inside out. And then it was this ugly tube thing, yay! I tortured it some more by poking the hanger into it and trying to make the points become more pointy. And honestly, it looked okay, but do not do this. For my mask, I just cut out a mouth and zigzagged the edges. Being careful not to stretch the dress, I sewed the face onto it. For the mask, I'm just using this mask pattern that I already found online and copied, and I'm just using the waistband that came with the dress so the colors will match. I'm cutting off all the seams here and flattening out the fabric. To get enough material to make one half of the mask, I stitched together a few cut-up pieces of the waistband. I thought this kind of mimicked the lines of a pumpkin, so it worked out well. And here is both sides sewn together. I sewed the nose and mouth to this piece of fabric just like the dress. The lining was made out of the black fabric I used for the waistband, and I attached the front and back together and added some string. And it was done.
And here's the finished result. I also had this already witchy looking black dress that I thought might go well with some of the pieces, so I tried it on and ended up loving it, so here's some footage from that as well. So it's such a fun project to make. Subscribe if you feel like it. I can't promise to upload a video anytime soon. Yeah.